Okay, well, I have 2 minutes after the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. I'm Marty Rosendale. I'm the CEO of the Maryland Technology Council, and this is the live CapitalM ZoomCast. The CapitalM podcast was created to further the regional conversation around capital markets, define issues, identify solutions, and build consensus to drive change. Our focus for the past year has been on the impact of COVID-19 and the pandemic, the regional response, the impact on businesses, entrepreneurs, and leaders. This year, CapitalM will continue to look at recovery from the pandemic and the pandemic recession, and we'll get back to our broader discussions of leadership, capital, and capital markets. Our Zoomcast today is sponsored by Alexandria Real Estate and Pfizer. Alexandria Real Estate, if you don't know them, are very big supporters of STEM and the Maryland Tech Council. In fact, they're the financial backing behind the Alexandria Real Estate sponsorship or scholarship for the universities at Shady Grove. And Pfizer, I'm sure everyone knows Pfizer these days with their development of the first COVID-19 vaccine. And if you didn't know, they did that without any government funding. And early in the pandemic, they also offered access to their expertise and their resources to help others develop vaccines and therapeutics. The Maryland Tech Council is the industry trade association representing the technology and life science industries throughout Maryland. Together with our members, we're improving the business climate in Maryland and helping companies that save, secure, and improve lives around the globe. Before we get started today, I just have a couple of housekeeping items. Your microphones are on mute right now. However, you'll find the chat and Q&A feature to the bottom of your screen. You can use both of those features to make comments or ask questions anytime throughout the conversation today. I'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. We also have behind the scenes a couple of folks that are going to help us monitor the chat and the Q&A as we go forward. Also, this Zoomcast is being recorded and will be made available for others to watch or listen to. So if you know anybody else that you think would benefit, please let them know that they can watch this Zoomcast after we record it today. So my guest today is Beth Berman. I've known Beth for a number of years now. Beth is a certified EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System Implementer. She's also a peer group facilitator, a speaker, and coach. She's known as being tiny but powerful. Beth is known for helping leaders and owners get what they want from their businesses and grow. Beth, thank you for joining me today.
Very happy to be here, Marty.
Great. So our topic today is how to solve your company's issues. Beth, you're a leader of leaders, and you've dedicated your career to helping others. Could you take just a couple of minutes, tell us about yourself, tell us about your journey, how did you get to this point where you're at today, and why are you so passionate about leadership and entrepreneurship?
I'd be happy to. So going way back, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family and have early, very vivid memories of driving around in the back of a station wagon with boxes of shoes. So the smell of shoe leather still resonates. My father had many businesses, many ups and downs. And so when after college, I then went after what I thought was stability, which it was, but it wasn't for me. I spent, after about 13 years in corporate, I came back to my entrepreneurial roots, joined the leadership team of a recruiting firm. And we were just going gangbusters going into 2008, recruiting for government contractors and retail, consulting, so many different areas. And then the market crashed. So we became somewhat irrelevant, and I led the pivot to becoming a job search coaching firm. We grew while others were failing and folding. And with that knowledge, ultimately in 2011, I launched my consultancy. And as I was out there working with leadership teams on communications, culture, leadership, team building, I found that the most successful companies, I kept hearing about this EOS thing. There's also a backstory, which I can share later if we have time. I'm in an EOS family, but that's a whole nother deal. But what I found is that the most successful companies were running on EOS. So I brought it into my practice, I brought it to my clients, and now it's just the best, highest impact work that I have done in my life. And over these past several years, I've been in my happy place because I'm facilitating leadership teams, leaders who are learners, leaders who want to get better. And my why is to have a profound rippling impact on leaders and teams so that that can ripple out. So that's kind of the quick story.
Well, that's cool. So Beth, I also grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My father was in the injection molding and plastics, and actually taught me to be a tool design engineer before I got out of high school, and I used that skill to put myself through college. But when you grow up in that environment, it's hard to live the corporate life, isn't it? When you've grown up in that,
So many rules.
Yeah. So you mentioned the entrepreneurial operating system, the EOS. Can you tell us, what is it? Why is it important, and why did you get into it?
So EOS is a complete proven system with practical, simple but not easy tools that help business leaders and owners take all the moving parts of a business and manage them and grow towards ultimately having a self-managed business. And whether the goal is growth or scale or just reclaiming their lives, getting their lives back, this is a system that actually becomes almost like your playbook for operating your business so that you can get what you want from it. Now, it focuses on three things. So vision, traction, healthy. Vision, which is from the standpoint of getting everybody 100% on the same page, all marching in the same direction towards a very clear vision and a plan to get there. Traction is about executing on that plan. It's how do we go day to day, week to week, month to month, and quarter to quarter, all the way through executing with discipline and accountability toward achieving the vision, short and long-term vision. And then finally, healthy is about creating cohesive, honest, open leadership teams who bring issues forward. Today's topic is issues, but also who work well together. What we find is over time as businesses grow, it started out being so much fun, so much control, the communications were great, but businesses become more complex and not as fun. And when they're not, and leadership teams aren't as lacking in politics as they might be. So vision, traction, healthy taken together helps leaders leaders and teams pull together towards the vision. Traction, the execution of that vision and strategy, and then healthy teams that work together, have fun again, and create an environment where what they want to happen will happen.
All right. So, the importance of, so you've described to us what the EOS is, right? And it's certainly something that you believe strongly in. But how does a company go about implementing it? So you have a new client, and they've never used it before. Uh-huh. What's the first step? How do you do it?
So that we have a process that I'll share later for how clients engage with us. Some people try to self-implement. That absolutely is, these are all open source tools that people can access. But the idea here is it's simple, not easy. So we have a process for bringing clients through the system. And what I'd like to do first is introduce the model and how it relates to issues, and then take you through the journey of what it looks like, why it matters. And when we get to the issues component, I'm going to take a much deeper dive.
Perfect.
So
that's
let
great.
me take you through the model. And EOS is based on a discovery. So speaking of issues, the discovery that the founder, Gino Wickman, made early on when he had very few clients. We've now got 10,000 companies running purely on this system, but he discovered that every company has issues coming at them, 100 some odd issues coming at a business every day, and that's normal. And if we're growing, we welcome issues. Issues are the challenges that we're facing along the path of growth. So, but what Gino found is that to the extent that you can sort your issues into 6 key components and then strengthen those components, that's where you get what you want from your business. So I'm going to take you first high level and then a little deeper into the tools that I think are just major takeaways for today in this discussion. So first is vision. Vision, as I said, is about getting everybody marching in your direction. Everybody clear on where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. In terms of vision, once we have everyone clear, the next component that we're talking about, this isn't chronological, it's not how it rolls out, but when we have a clear vision, we also need great people for the organization, and great people for your unique organization or company are very different. Great people, we cut through from all the terms, the consulting terms, A players, top quartile, and get to what really makes great people for your organization, because it's different for every company. It's different from one bank to another, from one landscaping company to another, and across industries. So we get to the guts of what makes great people for your company. The next piece that we want to strengthen, that we're talking about now, when vision is strong and you've got great people, is data. And so data is about having an absolute pulse on the business in terms of what's working, what's not working, so that we can have a high level view at the very highest level, then ultimately at department levels, as to what's on track, what's off track, and what's off track will be an issue that we will then deal with and process and get to the root of. So the idea here is that when vision is strong, people are great, and you've got this clear data giving you an absolute pulse on what's working and what's not working, issues pop out. So focus for today, issues. And if you saw the invite, as you've read, your ability to grow, to scale, to succeed, all of that is directly a result of your ability and directly related to your ability to set issues up, solve them at the root, and make them go away forever. We'll dig more into that later. So the next piece that we also want to strengthen on the entrepreneurial level is process. And process is about getting things done the right and best way every time, so that we have consistency, scalability, repeatability. So what we'll talk about in terms of process is, for entrepreneurs, it's not like the telecom behemoths. It's not like the giants. We don't want to be inundated with so much process that we can't make an independent decision, that our people can't make an independent decision. What we want to do is create the right amount of process so that people can operate at their highest skill level, and they can know when to stay within the kind of guardrails rather than railroad tracks, and execute well, knowing when to escalate, when it's within their bailiwick, and when they need to go outside of the normal process. So consistency, scalability is what results from that. And then finally, the piece that brings us all together is traction. And traction is about bringing the vision down to the ground and executing on it, so that everyone throughout the organization is clear on what needs to be done. They're executing on it. Communications are clear. Everyone's working together toward their goals to make the vision a reality. So that's a high level pulse. And the goal is to be as strong as we can in these 6 key components, and take all of our issues and sort them into these components so that we can get past the issues that hold us back. So that's high level. Let's take it a little bit deeper. I just want you guys to have a foundation for what is it we're really talking about here. So vision. For vision, in order to get our people aligned around a vision, we have to start at the top, at the leadership level. And we have a tool that we call the 8 questions. What are the 8 questions? The 8 questions are, what are your core values? What's your core focus? What's your 10-year target? What's your marketing strategy? What's your 3-year picture? What's your 1-year plan, your quarterly rocks, and your issues list? And I'm going to take you through this, not very deeply, but just to get a sense of, what does this mean? You know, everyone's got a different idea around vision, and EOS, Gino Wickman, the founder, simplified all of strategy and broke it down into 8 questions. So these questions are found on a tool we call the Vision Traction Organizer, or VTO. This is the vision side of the VTO. So core values, that's who you are, your DNA. It's your company code. It's not just words on a wall, words on a website, but core values that come alive to help you attract, coach, recruit, coach, train, and develop the people who are going to be a great fit for the organization. We're going to talk about that more. But we take people through an organization to get at what are these core values that really define who you are as a company, so that you can repel people who aren't a match and attract people who really will fit like a glove in your company. So when core values are who you are, the next piece is core focus. And here's where a lot of companies get tripped up. Core focus is your sweet spot. So what we get aligned on is our two components: the purpose, cause, passion, or the why, the motivation beyond profit, beyond incentive, that kind of thing. The deeper passion or purpose behind the organization, and the niche or niche, depending on which country you want to align with there. And the niche or niche is, what are you best at? What do you do better than anybody else? And what a lot of companies tried to do during COVID is pivot out of their sweet spot, where they weren't in their highest and best use, where they weren't strong, where they didn't have the passion behind it, they didn't have the competency behind it, and they weren't successful. I'll give you a story about some companies that were able to do that later. But so the idea around the sweet spot is, we want to be 100% clear on the vision component around what is it we love to do in our best at, so we can take all those shiny objects and say, nope, not in our core focus. Let's stay focused. The idea here is that we're far more likely to die of overconsumption or indigestion from too many ideas than we are from starvation from too few. So we see many companies moving in many different areas and many different directions without staying the course to their sweet spot. We're going to keep you in your sweet spot where you go faster, stronger, and better. The next piece is 10-year target. So core values, who you are, core focus, what you love to do in our best. 10-year target is where you're going. So it's if you've heard the consulting term BHAG, it's your big, hairy, audacious goal. But more importantly, it's a rallying cry for the organization, something that everybody from the intern all the way on up through leadership can get behind and rally towards. It's your North Star. So we get very clear on, where is this endpoint, this North Star that we're going to as part of our vision. The next piece is marketing strategy. So we know who we are, what we love to do best at, we know where we're going, marketing strategy. Just as EOS takes all of strategy and simplifies it into 8 questions, I've spent years in marketing. And these 4 components that you see on the screen, target market, 3 uniques, proven process, and guarantee, take all of marketing. So, and we define those things so that you can get the highest ROI on your marketing effort, energy, money, expenditure. So target market, who do you want to reach in order to execute that vision, to get to that 10-year target? Who are they? What are they? More importantly, even than who they are, what size company, who in the organization is, what's their mindset? What do they want? What do they think? That's the most important piece in marketing. So we create a very clear profile. So we have something to give to an intern, say, go find these people. These are the people we want to spend our money marketing to. Then, so our ideal client, growth-oriented leaders of entrepreneurial companies, sweet spot, 10 to 250 employees. We do smaller and way larger. Most importantly, they are more afraid of the status quo than they are of change. They're frustrated, they want help, they're coachable, and usually they are learners. They're often found in peer groups, they're leaders, they've had trusted advisors before. 3 uniques. 3 uniques are 3 things that take you and separate you and elevate you above your competition so that all marketing and sales can be devoted to that. For us, vision, traction, healthy. No one else brings those things all together and delivers them in a cohesive system that becomes your way of doing business. So we work with clients to say, what are your 3 uniques? Then proven process. So proven process is a 1-page visual. I'll show you a quick slide of it after. I think this one's a game changer. Not that anything else isn't, but I really recommend this. It is having a 1-page visual of the client or customer journey from the time they're thinking about working with you till the time they are longtime partners of yours. So, and raving and referring. So this is what it looks like. And the idea here is, why is this good? Because number one, they can see, hey, this isn't their first rodeo. EOS knows how to deal with my company or your process. You know how to deal with them, with your customer saying, yes, I see the journey. We're starting with a 90-minute meeting. We have a first day of focus day. These are the highlights of it. And we roll out. This is something we can get into detail later. But what this does is this gives your potential customers something that they can hang on to, that they can envision themselves within the process. But even more importantly, a lot of your competition doesn't do this. So if you have the 1-pager from the client or customer's view, that's where you can show them what the journey is going to look like. And then the final piece in marketing strategy is guarantee. So the guarantee is about removing the risk, the last minute hesitation of making the go decision. It's a pledge or a promise. It takes away that last bit, that last pit in the stomach before they sign, before they make the go decision to work with you. So staying high level in these 8 questions, we are going to get very soon to issues. You can have issues in any of these areas, but the next piece in vision is the 3-year picture. So we had our 10-year target. We know who do we need to attract to make that happen in terms of a customer base. We can also do this in terms of the employee base. 3-year pictures now, what's a vivid vision of where we're going to be 3 years from now? So we can begin to bring the vision down to the ground and see it. So things like, how many locations will we have? Will we be 60 or 70% virtual? What are they saying about us in the press? Are we listed on best places to work? All of these kinds of things that where are we celebrating our success when we hit our numbers in 3 years? So December 31st, 2024, where are we going? Is it Hawaii? Is it Aruba? We will vacation again someday. I'm sure of it. So vision, these questions of the 8 questions, these are the first 5, take us into getting aligned around the vision piece of the VTO. But I said, vision without traction is hallucination. The idea is we now need to bring it down to the ground and execute on it. So 1-year plan. We align around 3 to 7, not 37 goals for the year, because when everything's important, nothing's important. Then rocks. Again, 3 to 7 priorities. What do we absolutely have to get done in the next 90 days? Called rocks because of the Stephen Covey idea that your most important thing is your rocks. If you try to put all the other little stuff in first, you're never going to get the most important things done. So these are the things that must get done over the next 90 days. And then this is the first time the word issues really comes up in this explanation, aside from the component itself. But this is about creating a culture where we get issues out of people's heads onto a list somewhere. Also creating an environment where people are not fearful to bring issues forward, but will actually bring them forward in such a way that they know it's safe, and we have a process for prioritizing them and then listing them and solving them. So vision 100% strong, 8 questions shared by all. Then the people component. The people component is about right people in the right seats. And I'm not going to go into this level of detail all the way through, but I want you to be thinking in terms of, in the audience, have you ever had someone in the organization that you didn't let go early enough, that you kept around, that might still be around? The idea here is we want to keep people who fit our core values. And we have a tool for that called the People Analyzer. We also want them to be people who are sitting in the right seats. Now, as we're talking about issues, be thinking all the way through this as to, oh, well, these are those issues. How do I deal with these issues? Could be a vision issue, could be a people issue. Organizations are strong only as their people. And the idea here is what we want to have are people who fit our core values. We have a tool called the People Analyzer, where we line up our people against our core values and decide, do they exhibit our core values? Do they not? Who needs to be coached up? Who needs to be coached out? Many discussions about, can you change people? But sometimes all we do is need to set expectations. So for example, instead of saying to someone on the team, hey, loser, get the nose ring out of your ear and stop with the torn t-shirts, you could say something like, one of our values is professionalism. We really need your help. Could you wear a collared shirt? That would be great. And this person may all of a sudden get clearer on their abilities to support your core values, understand what's effective. We also use this as a tool so that core values are the driver for being able to coach people, as I said, up, out, have conversations that are reasonable so that you can keep people who are going to fit your organization, attract people who are going to fit your organization, and coach up or coach out those that don't. Right seats goes to the accountability chart. I don't want to go too deeply with this, but I want to leave you with one concept here. The idea is accountability chart. A lot of the issues are often around, well, who's accountable for this? It's a jump ball. I thought you were doing it. I thought you were doing it. Being absolutely clear about structure first. What's the right structure to help you to growth? And then what are the roles in those seats? And then who is a person in a right seat? Is someone who is fantastic at their job. They can execute on the 5 roles in the seat. So often we see that we can have a right people, wrong seat issue, or a wrong person, someone who's fabulous at their job, but's poison to the culture. So we use this tool to get very clear on this and move forward through that. Now, the next piece, and I want to move this guy forward, bear with me a second, I apologize, lost my screen there. The next piece that we want to get through is data. And data, once we have all these great people who fit like a glove and they are fantastic at their jobs, data is about having the right amount of data to have an absolute pulse on the company. So for this, we know that we can think about Jim Barksdale, former Netscape CEO. The idea is, if we have data, let's look at the data. If we have opinion, let's go with mine. When it's subjective, if it's not clear, we can't know what's on track and off track. So we have a great scorecard for taking this forward, for getting to the top high level numbers at each level of an organization that let you know if you are on track or off track. 13 weeks of history that takes you through and lets you know where you need to direct your attention. Maybe it's something to do with how the goal is set, the person who's supposed to be accountable for executing on that goal, and so forth. So that's data. Ideally, 100% strong looks like every department has a scorecard and everybody has at least one number, one measurable they're accountable for. So we're building accountability. Next piece, issues. And here's where I want to dig in a bit. So for the issues component, strengthening the issues component is about having an issues list and IDS. And I will take you through what those two things mean. So what we know is even the greatest leadership teams really have a problem solving issues. If you think about issue solving from the idea of IDS, if you think of them as identify, discuss, and solve, what we often see is that leadership teams, teams below them, they bring issues forward, but typically they're dealing with symptoms. And the idea here is that we want to get to the root cause. We want to identify the root cause of what is happening in the company. What is causing this issue to rear its head? So we want to identify at the root and then discuss efficiently and move to solve. But what we find are, whether or not they get to the root, what we find are that companies will hopefully cooperate here, discuss, and never get to solve. Anyone ever been in a room where the same issue pops up, or a meeting where the same issue pops up over time? It's because we never solve. It keeps, if we didn't get it at the root, it's coming back up as something else. So we have a problem with customer service. What's the problem with customer service? Was it a process issue? Was it a people issue? Was it a communications issue? Where was this? If we don't solve it at the root, it's just going to keep coming up. Maybe it was the salesperson themselves. Maybe it was an order processing. We don't know until we dig to the root, discuss it efficiently, and deal with the root cause or causes of an issue. Then bring the issues down to solve. So discuss them efficiently. Once we get to the point where we know what the root causes are, discuss them without politicking, without ego, without the things that hold us back, and move it to solve. What does solve look like? Solve usually looks like, okay, maybe there's more we need to find out about this. Maybe there's something that someone on the team needs to go research. So it's a to-do to go do that. Sometimes the issue goes away. Sometimes the issue may not be relevant now. Why are we keeping it here on this issues list? Let's move it to the long-term issues list and not let us distract us this quarter, this week, and this quarter. And then solve can also mean that the issue, once discussed, really isn't aligned with where we want to go. It's not even relevant, and it may go away. The idea, though, is the way we solve issues is you list your issues. It's about prioritization, and it's about solving them. So you take the issue that is top 3 issues on your list, prioritize them. Take issue number 1, IDS, identify, discuss, solve. Issue number 2, IDS. As many issues as you get through in your session, you'll be dealing with the most important things. So as an example, if you think about what's a common problem with businesses, customer service. Customer service can be caused from the salesperson or sales rep not completing the order and submitting it on time. It could be that the order processing department couldn't process it on time because there was a breakdown in communications between sales and order processing. Then the order processing department it's going to keep bubbling forward. Then delivery is off. Customer's not happy. Who's the customer going to? Do we know where the accountability is in the organization? So you begin to see that all of the components of EOS roll together. They're interrelated and interdependent to help you not only bring your issues forward, but have a way to solve them and move them forward in time, forward toward action, forward toward accountability. And that's where we get powerful in terms of bringing our issues forward, making them go away forever because we've solved them at the root. So before I move on, so that's kind of the quick deep dive on IDS and issues. And what I want to say is there are 2 more components that I just want to highlight very quickly, and then we can get to questions and so forth. So the next piece that we want to strengthen is process. So process is about having things done the right and best way every time. And here, as I said before, we don't want to put people in straitjackets. We don't want to put them in railroad tracks. We want to give them guardrails. So people can know when to, here's another one of my favorite thoughts, my favorite quotes here. We want to systemize the predictable so we can humanize the exceptional. Isadora Sharp, Four Seasons. The idea here is if we're going to have great customer service, whether you're in a product business, a service business, a SaaS business, whatever it is, the idea here is we need to know when to go outside of the process. And so the process should set the norm for how we can do things the right and best way as things are within the boundaries of that process. Get very clear on what has to happen from start to finish in order for that process to be a success. And also know when to create exceptions so that we can have exceptional customer service or exceptional employee onboarding, whatever the idea is there. And then finally, in my last bit of this teaching piece, after getting these processes followed by all and having everyone doing things the right and best way, is traction. And traction is about bringing it down to the ground and executing. For that, we go back to the concept of rocks and 90-day goals, because human attention actually fails after about 89 days. And then we also break that into a meeting pulse with a level 10 meeting that takes all of those questions around how would you rate your meetings in your company? They usually come back 3, 4. If there's anyone on this call who loves meetings and they're not in EOS, they're not practicing EOS or running on EOS, I would be shocked because most meetings are boring. These meetings are productive. We have a time-tested, never fail agenda that helps you get, and this we can skip, but that can help you get your reporting phase, the phase where you sit back and get bored and everyone over talks about things that you're not necessarily interested in. You can get that part done right away, bring everything down, see what the commitments were last week. Company, we then do our IDS. So if you think about identifying, discussing, and solving all of the things that are off track and anything else we've populated in the week, we're keeping the circles connected. We're creating a culture with scorecard and data where everything is just right at our fingertips. It's not about hiding things. People are encouraged to bring things forward and spot when things aren't working. And that's what gives us a level 10 meeting and a system that comes together to help you get what you want from your business. So that was my kind of high level teaching. And what I'd like to do is open it up to any questions.
So Beth, there is one question that came in. I just want to remind everybody to use the chat or the Q&A function. But we do have one question that's come in, which is, can you use this tool to identify potential issues for which there is no immediate identifiable solution?
Absolutely. And so, great question. I see that's Chris O'Rourke. The idea here is that there are short-term issues and long-term issues. And maybe the steps that we take with something that might be a scenario, it could be that there are issues that are first of all, let me define an issue within EOS. Issues in EOS, yeah, they're problems and challenges and obstacles, but they're also opportunities. So a scenario might also be an opportunity. And the idea here is, what are the pieces that we need to do now to further ourselves towards a desired scenario or to avoid a negative scenario? How do we then take that and move that into, is that a rock? Is that something that's a big project that we need to focus on this quarter? And we're going to track and report on in our weekly meetings, in the level 10 meetings? Or is this something that we really don't, there's some things out there, there's a scenario that, you know, maybe for instance, there was something that was relevant pre-COVID and now it's kind of no longer relevant. Maybe that goes on the back burner for a while. But if it's a scenario that we're building toward, absolutely can be an issue that we bring and compartmentalize in time, we solve it. identify what the root is, identify what the opportunity is, identify what the potential impact is, and then break it into reasonable chunks so that we can prioritize it and get done what we need to get done, execute to move us forward towards a positive outcome on that scenario.
So Beth, I'm curious, in other discussions on the CapitalM podcast, where we've been talking about access to capital, access to the capital markets, the discussion almost always comes down to leadership teams and how well they build confidence with investors. Can you give us some thoughts about how this, you've gone over a lot today. How does this help accomplish that?
So the idea here is investors are looking to mitigate execution risk. They want a sure deal. A company is as strong as their people, their processes, their ability to solve issues, how they execute, and so forth. And if you think about a pitch to an investor in the capital markets, that vision traction organizer is a great story. Hey, this is our company. This is who we are, the kinds of people we have here. This is what we love to do and are best at. This is where we're going. This is our targeted customer base, and we know exactly what we're going to say to them. This is where we're going to be in 3 years, and look how we're going to execute on it. We've got our priorities for the 1 year, we've got our rocks over the next 90 days, and we've got our issues lists, current and long-term, and we're sorting them and prioritizing them as their importance, not necessarily their urgency, dictates. A well-run company is going to be much more attractive. And in the process piece, where you've built repeatability and scalability, an investor is looking for that. They're looking for their ability to grow this concept, get a return on their investment, and all of this, your whole playbook, the process documents and things that you put together, all of this creates a case for a private investor, a PE company, to be interested and want to know more about you and feel more comfortable bringing their investment your way. We actually, in terms of that question, there's a PE company, Firefly, that only invests in EOS run companies because they are so well run.
Interesting. I didn't know that about Firefly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions?
So,
yours, or?
So Doug Hawley is asking, do you have any tips for dealing with an issue when someone key to the issue is not on the EOS team?
Well, can I get a little more clarity on that?
Let me see if I can, Doug, I'm going to see, you should be able to talk now, Doug.
Yep, I'm all set.
Hi, Doug, good to see you.
Good, same here. So, particular issue, you have a marketing team that supports, we put on programs, but we've got to go to the marketing team to get it promoted and put out into the marketplace. And they get inputs from lots of other people, right? And other priorities. So you're not necessarily top of mind. And it often becomes an issue of trying to get something promoted. I mean, that would be one example, right?
Okay.
You don't always have everything within the control of your team, right?
Yeah, so there might be external influences.
Right. And
yeah.
So you can talk to it till you're blue in the face, but you may not have all the input or might not have all the control to make the decision or drive it to closure. So I just look, and I know it's a difficult thing, but if there's some tips for.
Yeah, sure. So where there are influencers on a decision and they're kind of outside of the accountability chart, say the marketing organization, first of all, what we want to do is separate. The idea is who's in charge? Is this the customer? Is this voice relevant? Is this voice bringing us towards our goals? Should they have a voice? If it is so one is to process it as an issue. What's the root cause of why is this happening? Should we even be listening to this voice? Should this person be on the team? Is there an unknown relationship that has to be managed? Is this something for the visionary or CEO of an organization to deal with? Why is there an obligation for it? So this is the kind of thing that you want to dig into to get an answer. So, the idea of IDS, what are the root causes? Let's get real. Let's be open and honest. What's going on here? Why do we have this barrier? Why do we have this influence that may be taking us off course or making us unclear? And who really is accountable for delivering the marketing?
Good point. And just a little bit of a follow-up that's maybe related to that. Do you deal with many organizations where maybe a department implements EOS, but the rest of the company does not?
So EOS is best implemented company-wide. You can do it through a department or like an individual practice, for instance, within a law firm. But I didn't get into heavily the accountability chart, but the idea within EOS is you want the right and best structure to grow the company as an organization, right, and align the competing interests of sales and marketing, operations, finance. And for that, it's a whole nother discussion, but we would be very deliberate about making sure that is all, those departments or whatever, however they split out in an organization, are all working together toward a common goal, toward that common vision, and that someone is integrating and harmonizing those competing interests. So ideally, it's the whole company. If it's a larger company and it's a profit center and it's something we could discuss, but ideally you've got everybody pulling in the same direction, more than just one department, but we can talk.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
You're welcome.
Great, thanks, Doug. So Beth, there's another question. There's a question from Ed Snyder, and he's asking if you can give an example or two from your EOS experience of how the entrepreneur lists the data they use to improve their results, and what data elements do some of your clients use?
Lists the data elements. So are you talking about scorecard or in general, how they measure their success?
Hang on just a second. Ed, you should be able to respond to Beth's question.
I'm just talking about the types of data elements that some of the clients in EOS use. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So types of elements in terms of which components, or like the data elements?
Which components?
Oh, okay.
You listen to the section that you use certain actual data to help make certain decisions. And there's lots of data in my world, as you know.
Yes.
So I'm just curious from your experience, the types of components that businesses that you've served use.
Okay, so I'll kind of answer that in two ways. One is that from the standpoint of the data that people want to monitor, it tends to be data that tells them early on and later, are our people happy? Are our customers happy? Are our products and services being delivered well? Are we efficient? And are we profitable? Are we managing money well? So that's in terms of the data points. I will tell you that just about every organization, in terms of the 6 key components, people is always an issue. We keep people too long. We may not have the right people. We might not have the right structure, all of those components. So the idea is when you can get really clear on who's accountable for what and have open, honest discussions, possibly for the first time in an organization, that's where the companies that I work with have found that putting the right people in the right seats and having a commitment to get their major core processes documented, being aligned on vision, profound, who's been self-implementing the organization with a trained eye, coming through the system with a trained eye, helps them see where they're using the tools well, or where they need to tweak and strengthen and pull all the tools together in the synergy that they bring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Beth, I have a question for you. We're in a pandemic. Hopefully we're at the tail end of that pandemic. Can you give us some idea that the clients that you work with, those that are using the EOS, how have they done through the pandemic?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you what I've seen in the pandemic. It is that companies that weren't strong in the 6 key components and they had been surviving despite themselves were no longer could do it. They couldn't adapt. They didn't have what they needed to move forward through crisis. The companies that have been able, that had the foundation, that have a system, that were able to say, okay, we've had an accountability structure and now we may need to change it. We've maybe had to lose a few people. Some didn't lose anyone at all. They were able to say, okay, what's the right and best structure with fewer people to make sure all of the areas of accountability, all the functions are fully covered. How do we pivot that? How do we change that? And then in terms of, this is where core focus comes in so strongly, the idea of staying in our highest and best use. I was able to connect a client of mine. It's a great new startup called Dindin, eatdindin.com, with a catering company. This catering company had, their CEO had passed, not even from COVID, we think from heartbreak, just because of what happened to his industry. They were flailing, they were down to 0 business. Events were being canceled, weddings were put off, all of these things. There were no more corporate events happening. By putting them together with a startup, they were able to pivot along their core focus, preparing professionally prepared food, high quality for individual families, for organizations that were doing remote events, virtual events, and run it through this platform that's running on EOS so that they are able to bring their mission forward. Dindin is able to bring the culinary chefs who were put out of business, whether it was in a catering hall or a chef at a restaurant that may have closed, and bring high quality food, individual meals. And the idea here is a twofold. One, they were able to stay in their core focus, use foundational tools to move forward, to have clear accountability, do more with less, keep the circles connected with a meeting structure, not even weekly necessarily anymore, but now more like a daily huddle as crisis and change was happening so quickly, but still using the same agenda, the same processes, so that they're able to be successful, remain viable, and also come as the markets come back, as restaurants begin to reopen, events happen again someday. They're still in position to do that. Their processes are tighter, and now they can play in both worlds. So the idea there is, when you've got the right structure, great people, clarity, bringing issues forward, solving them at the root so that they go away forever and they don't keep popping up, the right data to have a pulse very early on what's not working so you can nip it in the bud. That's where this all comes together to bring the execution to the vision. And even if the vision had to be changed, by staying with the foundations and sticking with the vision, traction, healthy, and help them be an open, honest team and face changes together. That's what I saw in my clients.
Great, thank you for that. So Beth, we're coming up to the end of our hour here, and normally I would ask this question before we got into the Q&A, but since we're at the end here, is there anything that you didn't have a chance to touch on today that you'd like to?
So I would like to say that, first of all, thank you for having me, but I have another point that I want to make. I am quoting my mentor and friend. He was in the book Traction, Jonathan Smith here. But what we believe is that every great leader needs 3 things: a coach, a peer group, and a system. So we believe EOS is the system, and the EOS creed is that you must have one, you can't merge them together. But as far as a coach, they need a coach to help them be their best, create have a safe place to be asked questions that bring them clarity one-to-one. The peer group, another safe place to grow, to learn, to be able to be vulnerable. It's, the idea of it was lonely at the top. It got, people have more self-doubt during COVID, periods of uncertainty and constant change. So the idea that we can that rising tides raise all ships, and we can be open and honest with even our peers. So coach, peer group, system, that's the magic troika that gets you to getting what you want from your business. And also I do complimentary 90-minute workshops and open to phone calls, whatever. My assistant is on the line here in the background, and happy to help in any way I can, even if it's just a phone call.
Great. And Beth, I just put your website and your email address in the chat room for anybody that wants to get in contact with you. And I absolutely agree with you what you were saying just there. We found that through the pandemic, a lot of companies needed and wanted assistance. We created a program called the Business Continuity Task Force. We actually align the company up with a coach. We created a peer group so they can get together and discuss and face their issues together as a group as well. And so it's definitely a powerful combination. You're an amazing executive coach. I would encourage anybody listening to us today to follow up with you. And I appreciate your time. This has been fantastic.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to be with you.
Great. So again, this is Marty Rosendale with the Maryland Tech Council. I've been talking with Beth Berman, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And particularly, I want to thank our sponsors, Alexandria Real Estate and Pfizer. And I hope you all have a great day and stay vigilant. Beth, thank you again.
My pleasure. Stay safe, everyone.